Hello everyone, my name is Kate Powell and I will be hosting this video presentation together with my partner, Victoria Kuzmina.
Hello everyone, my name is Victoria Kuzmina and I practice immigration law from Washington, D.C.
In this video, we will cover creative immigration solutions for IT professionals, entrepreneurs, and startups. A little bit about us. Our office practices exclusively immigration law. We focus our work on business immigration, on various work visas for IT professionals, for startups, entrepreneurs. We do investor visas, visas for individuals with extraordinary abilities. The majority of our clients come from the entrepreneurial world, and they are opening startups in the US, and they frequently practice in the high-tech industries. This is why we wanted to create this video to cover the most frequently asked questions and visa adjudication trends. I will begin this presentation, and then I will pass it on to Victoria. First of all, I would like to share some of the slides that we prepared so you could just follow what we're discussing. Victoria, can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. So let's begin with an overview of available work visa options. In this video, we will discuss H-1B, E-1, E-2 visas, L-1, and O-1. We will address O-1 visa in more detail as we see that this is becoming one of the most popular visa options, and we'll explain why in this video. So at first, I will discuss H-1B visa for professionals in specialty occupations. These occupations must require a bachelor's degree in the specific specialty as a minimum educational requirement for entering the field. USCIS has a very strict standard on what can be considered a specialty occupation, and they do not rely on the job title by itself. Rather, they rely on the job duties, their complexity, and the wage to be paid to you, and other factors. Generally speaking, H-1B was created for engineers and other specialized professionals. It's important to note that there is a limit on the number of visas issued each year. The general quota is 65,000 visas, and there is additional 20,000 visas for holders of master's degrees, graduates of US universities. The application period for H-1B visa begins on April 1st each year and lasts normally 5 business days. The first start date of work is October 1st. It's important to point out that in the recent several years, there has been H-1B visa lottery because of the limitation on the number of visas available. What it means is that not all applications that are submitted to USCIS will be considered. Being selected in the lottery does not mean that the case will be necessarily approved. Rather, it means that it will be considered and adjudicated. In the last several years, there has been a 30% selection rate of all applications that are filed. There are a couple of things to keep in mind with H-1B. First of all, it's the wage. The wage for H-1B visa is normally pretty high because it has to correspond to the standard wages paid in the occupational category based on the geographical location of the workplace. Second important consideration is for startups and small businesses. H-1B is normally used by bigger companies because there are additional limitations for getting H-1B to work in your own company and to work in a startup. First of all, you have to establish employee-employee relationship, that the company has the authority to control your work. And it's harder to do if you own part of the business. However, it is still possible. Another important thing to keep in mind for small businesses, there has to be enough work available and sufficient workspace. We could do a separate video just talking about additional requirements for startups and small businesses because that's going to take a long time. So I'm not going to go into details with these aspects, and I will move on to the next visa. Next visa I want to cover is E2 investor visa for nationals of treaty countries. Most European countries have treaties with the US for E2 investor visa. For example, most European countries, Canada, Australia, have E2. Notable exceptions include India, Brazil, Russia, China, New Zealand. You can use E2 visa to come to the United States to open and develop your business. Main requirements are the following. You have to own at least 50% of the company in the US. You have to be a national of the treaty country. You are coming to the US to open a new business or to buy an existing business. One of the most important considerations is that you have to invest substantial amount of capital. Capital can include money, inventory, and other non-monetary contributions. What is substantial is not defined by statute, however, and it depends on the type of business that you want to open. For example, if you are opening a consulting business, it may require less investment to become operational than, for example, a line of restaurants, where you need to invest more money. The most important thing to keep in mind when considering whether your investment is substantial or not is to invest enough money for the business to become operational. If there is also an option to pool capital together with another investor, and one of you in as the principal investor, and a second person will come in as an employee of the business. And there are other strategies that you could use if there's not enough money, but you still want to use E2 visa. And the other requirement is that the enterprise must have a future capacity to generate more than minimal living for the investor and his or her family. The money that you're investing have to come through legal means. You have to provide bank statements, you have to provide tax returns or other proof of earned income from your home country. Another visa I want to cover is E1. Many countries, even though they do not have E2 visa, they have an option of doing E1 treaty trader visa. What is E1? E1 applicants' main requirements include the following. First of all, you have to be a national of the country with which the United States maintains a treaty. You have to carry on substantial trade. International trade must be principally between the United States and the treaty country. What constitutes trade? First of all, trade is not limited to just goods. It includes services, insurance, transportation, communications, and management consulting, and many other activities. Trade must be substantial. What it means is that the more weight is given to numerous transactions over time, rather than one transaction or just few transactions, even though they are of substantial value. Another important requirement is that the trade must be principally between the United States and the treaty country. What it means is that over 50% of the total volume of international trade should be between the US and the treaty country. This is it for the overview, and now I will pass the microphone to Victoria, who will begin her discussion with L1 visa.
Thank you, Kate. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. Now I will discuss an L visa. L visa is a temporary work visa for entrepreneurs and business owners who work or own a company abroad and would like to transfer to US to manage an already existing sister company or open a brand new affiliated office. The three most important requirements of an L visa are: you had to work for the foreign company full-time for at least 1 year in the last 3 years as a director, manager, or a specialized knowledge employee. You are coming to US to either work as a director, manager, or a specialized knowledge employee, and the US entity must be affiliated in some way to the foreign company. If you work for a foreign company as a manager or director, then you can qualify for an L1A visa. On the other hand, if you have specialized knowledge in the foreign company's processes and methods, then you can qualify for an L1B visa. The U.S. entity must be affiliated with a foreign company. The U.S. entity can be a sister company, a branch office, a joint venture, a partnership, etc. Also, both companies must be active and operating for your L visa to stay valid. If you're coming to US to open a brand new office, then keep in mind that your initial L1 visa will be valid for only 1 year. And by the end of the first year, you will have to show that the entity is fully functional and operational and can support a position of a manager or a director. Only then you'll be able to extend the L visa to a maximum of 7 years for managers and executives and 5 years for specialist knowledge employees. If you have an L1 visa, then you can bring your spouse and children who will have the right to work and study in the US. And now I will continue to a discussion about an O1 visa. O-work visa is a wonderful option for professionals in business, science, education, and sports fields who are at the top of their respective fields. There are 9 criteria that a professional can use to establish extraordinary abilities and achievements in his or her field of endeavor. Field of endeavor means a specific field in which you possess expertise and can show major accomplishments for which you're seeking an O1 visa. If you have been awarded an internationally recognized prize or award, such as a Nobel Prize, then you don't have to go any further. Receipt of an internationally recognized award or prize is all it takes to qualify for an O1 visa. However, you can also qualify for an O visa if you can prove at least 3 of the following 8 criteria. Receipt of a lesser nationally or internationally recognized prizes or awards, membership in associations that require outstanding achievements of its members, published materials in professional or major trade publications, newspapers, or either major media about you or your work, your original scientific, scholarly, or business-related contributions of major significance to your field. Also, that you have published scholarly articles in professional journals or other major media in your field of activity, a high salary or other remuneration, participation on a panel, or the fact that you've judged the work of others. Also, employment in a critical or essential capacity for an organization or establishment that have distinguished reputations. In addition, if the above criteria do not readily apply to your profession, then comparable evidence can be submitted. And now I'm going to discuss how you can establish each criteria. Each criteria must be proven with supporting evidence, and everyone's situation is unique. And there are a variety of ways that the criteria can be proven, and these are just examples. How can an applicant for an O1 visa confirm that his or her awards are important and internationally recognized? You can show criteria used for the evaluation and nomination of participant and winners to show that it's not that easy to obtain this award, that it's maybe awarded once a year, or only extraordinary achievements are nominated. Also, you can show the importance of such award in your field of expertise, as well as, of course, the reputation of organization that awarded you such prize or award. And if there are any famous previous prize winners, then you would want to give that example as well. For entrepreneurs, for this category, you can show, for example, the amount of grants that you've received for your project or company, venture capital funding, investments that your company had received as a result of your work. It all can prove the substantiality of the award. Next criteria, how do you confirm that an association consists of high achieving members? Again, you will want to show the minimum requirements and criteria required to even apply for such membership. How competitive is it? Number of members in the association, how many new members they accept each year, What about the association status compared to national and international professional community in your field of activity, and any other rules that show the competitiveness of this membership. For entrepreneurs, it could be, for example, acceptance into a prestigious incubator programs or accelerators, excuse me. For example, an acceptance to Y Combinator, 500 startups, or other prestigious programs. Next criteria is how do you show that you had publications about yourself in professional or major media. Of course, you'll want to give a copy of that specific publication to show that it's discussing you, your career, your achievements, your projects. But you will also want to show that it's major media or a professional publication. And in that situation, you will need to show that it is very important journal in your specific field of endeavor, and as well as how often it is published, how many publications are published every year, and what type of professionals would normally read such publication. What's important to note is that it doesn't always have to be a US publication. If the work that you're doing is abroad and it's recognized in your country, then you can show the exact same publications specific to your country. How will you confirm a significant original contribution to your field of endeavor? Again, we will start with documentary evidence of your contribution to your field of activity. For a lot of entrepreneurs, it will be patents, new technologies you invented, any specific projects that keep getting cited, or any other companies using your work. This is also a good opportunity to submit a letter of recommendation from experts in your field, confirming the importance of your work, as well as its originality. In this situation, it will be great to show that you're being recognized by major investors, any experts in your field, and they can detail your achievements and explain exactly what you have done and why your extraordinary work has been so important to your industry. Also, if you had a supervisor or your position is key within the company and you have someone in a position of a senior manager or director, or even your company's co-founder, they can write a letter detailing your achievements and explaining the importance of your achievements to your industry and as well as to the company itself. Also, if your work, again, has been cited in various works, scholarly papers, trade journals, that is another way how you can prove your significant contribution. How would you show that others are actually using your work in your field of endeavor? You can show that through contracts with companies that use your product, licenses to use your technology, patents that are currently in use and showing their importance to the industry. For example, if your business is successfully connected to internet and maybe you're using App Store or Amazon, then you can show how much traffic there is to your website and how often your product is being downloaded or bought. This is definitely a very flexible criteria, and you can just think what is relevant to your specific project, to your specific work in your field of endeavor, and you can definitely think outside of the box and use whatever relevant information and evidence to prove this criteria. How will you confirm authorship of scholarly articles in professional or major media?
Victoria, if you'd like, I can continue.
Okay.
Okay. 1 second. I will share my slides. Can you see it? Can you see the slide?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So I will continue the discussion on O1 criteria. And the fifth one is authorship of scholarly articles in professional or major media. Many may not realize that they have scholarly articles because they think that scholarly refers to only scientific research articles, but it's not the case actually. What's important in this specific criterion is, first of all, to show that the article itself is designed for people with deep knowledge in your professional field. So the audience for the article that you're writing should be professionals in your specific industry. And the second most important requirement for this criterion is that the articles have to be published in professional trade publications or other major media. And this is actually a very easy requirement to meet if you are preparing for O1 visa beforehand, because I'm sure you can definitely write give some examples, give some advices to other professionals in your field, and publish it in one of the open publications that accept various articles. For example, even articles of a marketing professional that shares advice on some aspects of his or her work for other marketers are considered scholarly articles. What is important is that do not provide publications that are only intended for general audience, as these publications will be discounted and will not be used to satisfy this criterion. Next one is high remuneration for your work. How do you prove that you have received high salary or other compensation? First of all, you can either provide evidence that you have received high level of compensation for your work in the past, or you can show that your intended employment in the US will have a high salary or other remuneration. You can provide copies of employment contracts with indication of your compensation. You can provide payment receipts. You can provide tax returns. If you received other forms of compensation instead of salary, for example, you received profits from the sale of your business, you received dividends from operation of the business that you owned, this can all serve as evidence for this criterion. What's important is to compare the compensation that you received with the compensation of others in the same field. Also, another thing to keep in mind that if you received your salary or other compensation in the foreign country, you don't have to compare this compensation with the US salary. You have to compare it with other similarly situated people in your profession, in your geographic locality, in your country. Next one is, for example, for some reason it was jumping over. So the next one is acting as a judge of the work of others. This criterion is also a bit flexible, so you can provide information that you judged on a panel or individually, the work of others in the same field. You should provide evidence of the importance of the work that you judged. You should provide information on the criteria used in the selection of judges and an explanation of how and why you received an invitation to be the judge. And here, I would like to point out that entrepreneurs are often invited to judge in competitions, or they provide advice and mentorship to other startups, or they act as an advisor or mentor as part of incubator programs. This evidence may be submitted for the purposes of this criterion. Also, if you are acting on the board of directors of other companies and you help evaluate their business strategies, their business growth, etc., you can use this for this criterion. Also, if you work in a supervisory position, for example, you're a lead developer, you're a CTO, and you evaluate the work of other developers in your company, you can provide evidence of this criteria for this criterion as well. Next one is employment in a critical and essential capacity for a distinguished organization. The best evidence for this criterion would be a letter from the employer or employers that confirm your critical and essential capacity and the importance of your work for the company. You can also provide publications about you in the key capacity, and you should provide documentation establishing that the company you worked for has a distinguished reputation. This evidence may include information that you have worked in senior management capacities, and it's also important if you worked for well-known companies. It will be a great indication of the overall distinguished reputation of the company. I would like to note that for O1 visa, you can provide the same evidence, and it can be used to satisfy more than one criterion. Now, I would like to give you a resume of a person, an IT professional, who qualified for O1 visa. Let me stop sharing my screen for a second with you before I turn to the resume. I just would like to explain that many people who come to us, they may not realize that they qualify for O1 visa because they don't think that they have extraordinary abilities. But in fact, if you go through each criterion and you see that you do have evidence that can satisfy them, you may be a great candidate for O1. The resume I'm going to show you, I deleted all identifiable details of the person, but I left an overview of his career so you could see who was able to qualify for O1. Even though it may not be apparent from the resume, but if you see deeper into it, I will discuss how we were able to satisfy O1 criteria for this guy. So now I will share my screen to give you the resume of the person. So here I have Alexander's resume. He is from Israel. So Israel does not have currently E2 treaty with the US. So it was not possible to qualify him for E2. He does not have a company abroad, so he doesn't qualify for L1. H1B application period was over, so he had no other options. So we started considering O1 for him. And Alexander is a developer, a professional in IT field, and he was coming to work as a CTO, Chief Technology Officer, of a startup he co-founded in the US. The startup was only in the initial stage of its development. It didn't have any other employees. It just had one other co-founder who acted as the company's CEO. They developed an IT solution for the legal industry. And they were looking for ways to bring Alexander to the US so he could further develop the innovative IT solution so they could start scaling the business in the US. So as you can see, this is his resume. He worked for various companies over a period of 15 years. And some of his positions were in supervisory and senior capacities. He also worked for some of the big companies. For example, you see AVG Technologies. But from looking just at this resume, you wouldn't say that he possesses extraordinary abilities. However, when we started discussing the criteria with him, we found many things that he didn't even think to put in his resume. For example, we were able to address 7 of 8 criteria for O1. The first one that we addressed was awards and prizes in the field. First of all, the startup that Alexander came to develop in the US received $140,000 of investment. It's not a very high investment for a startup, However, in combination with other evidence, it served as proof that he qualifies. For example, in addition to this investment in the new enterprise, the companies that Alexander has worked throughout his career received certain awards that were given to the companies because of his work. And we presented evidence of these awards, along with an explanation in the letters from past employers about Alexander's role in the development of the IT solutions that brought the companies these awards. The second criterion that we were able to address here was membership in organizations that require outstanding achievements from their members. The US enterprise that Alexander co-founded in the US got accepted in a prestigious incubator, which has strict acceptance policies. We also showed the criteria for the acceptance. We showed a letter from this incubator describing how Alexander's company was able to join, how many applicants they normally have, how many startups normally apply for their program, who their judges are. We also showed evidence of other startups who graduated from that program, from the incubator program, and the success they were able to achieve. The next one criterion we were able to address here was publications. Unfortunately, Alexander himself was not mentioned in many of the articles about the US enterprise. Only the CEO, his co-founder, was mentioned. However, we were able to show that many of these articles talked about the IT solution itself. So they were about Alexander's work in the field, even though they did not mention him specifically. And it is very common in the field for CTOs not to be mentioned in the articles. Normally, only CEOs are mentioned. And but you can still argue that these publications are about you if they talk about your work. The next criterion we addressed was original contributions of major significance. We provided information on the technological solution developed by Alexander. We provided information that previously such solution was not existent on the market, and we provided information on the problems it solves, and we gave information on the web traffic and other evidence that the solution is being used by other companies and people. In addition to this evidence, we provided information of Alexander's involvement in open source projects. And this is actually very common with developers, which can be used as an additional plus for this O1 criterion. So Alexander was actively involved in GitHub and Stack Overflow open source projects. And in these projects, he fixed codes for the programs that other companies provide. So they make it available for all developers worldwide, and anyone can contribute. And if your contribution is accepted by the company and is used in the finalized product, this can serve as an additional evidence of your contributions to the field, and an additional, as I said, plus for O1 visa. The next criterion for Alexander was high salary and other remuneration. On some of the jobs he has held throughout his career, we were able to show that he received a salary which was much higher than other developers in the field in Israel. And this was enough as well. The next one was judging of the work of others. So as you can see, Alexander has served in senior capacities throughout his career. He served as a senior developer, lead developer, supervisor. We provided letters of recommendation and letters from the employers who described Alexander's duties and how he was judging and evaluating the work of other developers in these companies. Also, Alexander was actively involved in associations of IT professionals. And this is also very common in the field. These associations are designed to share expertise, to provide feedback on other problems, other like IT professionals' problems, solutions. And Alexander was also actively involved in a couple of such associations, and we provided this evidence as well. And the last criterion we addressed for Alexander was evidence of serving in critical and essential capacity for organizations with distinguished reputations. And here, some of these companies were, as I said, very well known. So we provided information of their distinguished reputation, and we provided letters from the employers which described Alexander's critical and essential role. The only criterion we were not able to show for Alexander was his authorship of scholarly articles. But as I said, when addressing this criterion, it is actually not very hard to provide information on the scholarly articles in your field if you're preparing for O1 beforehand. So this concludes my presentation on O1 visa, and I will pass it on to Victoria.
Thank you. Okay, can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, now I will discuss important consideration when you own your own company. O1 visa actually, it's intended for a specific employer-employee relationship. When you apply for an O1 visa, the presumption is that you are applying for a specific position with a specific company. And we get a lot of questions. Well, if I get an O visa, can I go work for any company I want or do any projects regardless of this specific position? And unfortunately, the answer is no. O1 visa, again, is for a specific employer and for a specific position that you're applying for or a project. In situations where you own your own company, you still need to establish an employer-employee relationship. So if you own less than 50% of the company, then you can just show that the company has control over your work, and hence you will establish an employer-employee relationship. In situations where you own more than 50% or 100% of the company, then you can show an employer-employee relationship through independent board of directors or investors who actually have the right to exercise control over your employment. Further, we'll discuss, okay, you own your own company, but what are the requirements? How do you show that the company actually exists? So by the time you do apply for an O1 visa, your company must already exist. So you will want to show that the company has already been registered as an LLC or a corporation. It would be good to have already a lease for an office. Also, you definitely want to show a certain capital on a bank account to show that the business has enough money to run and to pay salary to its employees, as well potentially as you. Also, for example, if you need to enter the United States to set everything up, you can use your tourist visa, but at the time when you enter the United States, you will let them know that you're entering with a B1 intent to register your business, to open a bank account, find an office, sign a lease. All those things are necessary to start a company. O1 visa has a multitude of benefits. First of all, compared to an H1B, there's no cap and there's no specific time when you need to apply for an O visa. Therefore, as long as you qualify with the criteria, you can apply for an O1 visa at any time of the year that you wish. It doesn't really expire, meaning that yes, you need to continue renewing it after the first 3 years, but as long as your company is working, as long as your specific project continues, essentially you can continue renewing your visa endlessly. Also, if you have a family, they can come with you to the United States as long as your visa is valid, and they will have the right to live and attend school here. a lot of times we ask a question about, okay, now my company is doing really well and it's growing and we have a lot of employees. How do I stay here forever? If you're really interested in staying in the United States permanently, then you actually have an analogical option to an O1, which is a green card, employment-based green card, EB1. A lot of times when you already have an approved O1 visa and you decide to apply for an EB1, it looks favorably for your EB1 application. Other pluses of this green card is the fact that you actually don't even need an employer. You can petition for yourself. Your spouse and your children will be able to obtain green cards as well. And finally, you'll just need to prove similar criteria that you had to prove for an O1. So long as you keep doing great things and your company is growing and you have extra time to strengthen each criteria, you will essentially, for an EB1, you will show almost very similar criteria as you had in O1. And therefore, you can obtain green card if you wish to. And this essentially concludes our presentation. If you have any questions, here's our contact information for Yekaterina and myself. Our website is calivisa.com and our telephone number is 858-598-3715. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for listening to this video, and we hope that this was very helpful to you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a good day.